Dear friends, this is my new channel. I work very hard to bring you amazing stories. Please support me by subscribing, hitting the bell icon, and helping me reach 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. I'm Amelia, 35, and today I laid my husband, James, to rest in a foreign land. After 30 grueling hours of travel back home, I sent a message to our family group chat. Flight lands at 5 p.m. Can someone pick me up? My brother Troy shot back, we're swamped, try Uber. My mom chimed in, couldn't you have planned better? My fingers shook as I typed, no worries, while inside I was crumbling. Little did I know that within hours, my personal tragedy would become a headline on the evening news, exposing my family's indifference to a nation of strangers. Before I dive deeper into this story, let me know in the comments where you're reading from. If you've ever felt left alone in your darkest hour, give this a like and follow for more. Before grief turned my world upside down, I had what most would call an idyllic life. James and I crossed paths in our sophomore year of college when he accidentally spilled coffee on my economics textbook. He insisted on replacing it, and somehow, that clumsy moment led to a dinner date. We tied the knot after graduation and built a warm, fulfilling life in Portland, Oregon. I was a marketing manager, climbing the ladder at a local firm, while James shone as a software developer. Our charming two-story home had a backyard garden I tended lovingly every spring. James always teased that my heirloom tomatoes could steal the show at any county fair. We shared a decade of marriage that felt like a dream. We explored new countries whenever we could, hosted board game nights with friends every Thursday, and saved diligently for the future. We'd even started dreaming about kids, transforming our guest room into a home office that could easily become a nursery. Life was good, until last fall, when James landed a 6-month gig with a tech giant in Singapore. It was a career-defining opportunity, one that promised to elevate his work and let us experience life abroad. I arranged to work remotely for 3 months, splitting time between continents. The adventure thrilled us. The night before he left, we shared a quiet dinner at home, soft jazz filling the air, candles casting a warm glow. James held my hand, his eyes full of promise. 6 months will zip by, he said. Then we'll start our next chapter. We video chatted daily for the first 2 months. I flew to Singapore for 3 weeks over the holidays, and it felt like a second honeymoon. The city dazzled, vibrant, alive, electric. James showed me hidden gems, introduced me to his colleagues, and we escaped to nearby islands on weekends. We even started talking seriously about starting a family once his contract wrapped up. Everything seemed perfect. Then came the call that shattered my world. Back in Portland, during a morning video call, James mentioned a splitting headache. Just work stress, he said, rubbing his temples. Big deadline looming. 8 hours later, his coworker called from James's phone. He'd collapsed in a meeting and was rushed to the hospital. I booked the earliest flight, but the 26-hour journey felt endless. When I arrived, James was in a coma. The doctors diagnosed a brain aneurysm, catastrophic damage. They performed emergency surgery, but it wasn't enough. For 5 days, I sat by his bedside, holding his hand, whispering memories, begging for a miracle that never came. James was only 37. Navigating a foreign hospital alone was a nightmare. Forms were incomprehensible, conversations stilted through translation apps or overworked interpreters. I called my family daily, desperate for a lifeline, but their responses were curt. We're praying for you, they'd say before rushing off. My mom asked if I'd considered travel insurance. Troy suggested hiring a local service to handle things so I could return sooner. But I couldn't leave James, not in a country where he had no family, no close friends. I stayed, managing everything alone. The paperwork for his death certificate took 3 exhausting days, shuttling between government offices. Transporting his body back to the US was financially out of reach, so I arranged a burial in Singapore. The funeral was small, just me, a few of James's coworkers, and some expats he befriended. My parents cited the cost of last-minute flights. Troy had urgent work commitments. I stood alone as they lowered my husband's casket into the earth, a world away from home. The financial toll was crushing. Our insurance covered some costs, but international policies had gaps I hadn't anticipated. I drained our savings and maxed out credit cards to cover the rest. Through it all, I kept my family updated, hoping for more than their brief condolences or practical advice. But their responses mirrored a lifelong pattern I tried to ignore. Growing up, my achievements were often overshadowed. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my parents left my ceremony early to get Troy to his baseball game. At my college graduation, they arrived late and left early. At my wedding, my mom fussed over Troy's +1 instead of celebrating with me. I'd spent years excusing their behavior, convincing myself their love was just expressed differently. Standing at James's grave, I realized some people simply can't prioritize others, even in moments of profound need. After the funeral, the bureaucracy continued. Singapore required multiple certified death certificate copies, each needing authentication at different offices across the city. I spent days in sweltering heat, navigating lines, and explaining my situation through tears. Each night, I returned to our rented apartment, surrounded by James's belongings, his cologne-scented shirts, his laptop, his running shoes, collapsing under the weight of grief. On my final morning in Singapore, I visited James's grave at dawn. The cemetery was serene, birds chirping in the tropical trees. I placed fresh orchids by his headstone and sat on the grass, whispering promises. I packed his favorite books, the watch I gave him for our 5th anniversary, and a jar of seashells from our island getaways. I'll carry you with me, I said, touching the cool stone. Every single day. The journey home was a 30-hour ordeal, delayed flights, a missed connection in Tokyo, an overnight airport hotel, and turbulence so bad the crew stayed seated for hours. By the time I landed in Portland, I was running on fumes, sustained only by grief and resolve. My mind kept replaying childhood memories, patterns I'd once dismissed. When I was 9, I broke my wrist falling off a swing. My parents dropped me at the ER but left to take Troy to his soccer finals. The team needs him, my mom said. When I earned a full-ride scholarship to college, my dad asked if it would cost them anything. Troy's sports camps were pricey that year. I worked 2 jobs to cover expenses while Troy's out-of-state tuition was fully funded. At my wedding, my mom called my dress extravagant, and my dad grumbled about the venue's cost. Troy arrived late, hungover. James saw it all but urged me to focus on our joy. We can't change them, he'd say, but we can choose how much they affect us. I clung to that wisdom, but in Singapore, as I called home daily, their responses stung anew. Most calls went to voicemail. When they answered, they focused on my return date, not my pain. My mom suggested I was lingering by staying for the funeral. Troy asked about James's life insurance before venting about a work project. I sent my flight details to the family chat 3 days before returning, hoping someone would step up. I got thumbs-up emojis and Troy asking if I'd bring souvenirs. I clarified my arrival time twice, but no one offered a ride. As my plane touched down in Portland, I made one last plea. Troy's were busy, try Uber, and my mom's, why didn't you plan better? Felt like daggers. Sitting in my seat, surrounded by passengers eager to disembark, I made a vow to myself and James. I'd stop expecting love from those incapable of giving it. Portland International Airport was a blur of noise and fluorescent lights. I shuffled through customs, jet-lagged and hollow, my eyes stinging from exhaustion. At baggage claim, I watched the conveyor belt spin, spotting my bags instantly. 1 for my clothes, 2 packed with James's belongings. His favorite hoodie, the journal I gifted him, our photo albums, his coffee mug. Pieces of him I couldn't leave behind. My phone buzzed with another family chat message. Troy, sis, we can't drop everything last minute. That's why schedules exist. Mom, your dad and I have a dinner with the Thompsons tonight. We RSVP'd ages ago. Dad, rain's coming, drive safe. No questions about my safety or grief, just their plans, their priorities. I typed, no worries, I get it. Though I didn't. How could a dinner party trump picking up your daughter who just buried her husband? The weight of the suitcases nearly toppled me as I pushed them toward the exit. One cartwheel jammed, and a bag fell, bursting open. James's clothes spilled across the floor, his gray sweater, his running shoes, the tie he wore to our anniversary dinners. I dropped to my knees, sobbing, gathering them as strangers stepped around me. A kind airport worker, Maria, knelt beside me. Her name tag gleamed under the lights. Let me help, she said softly, her eyes warm with empathy. Are you okay? The question unraveled me. When had anyone last asked if I was okay? Not how to fix things, but just if I was okay. My husband died, I whispered. I buried him in Singapore. Maria's face softened. She helped repack the bag, escorted me to the rideshare area, and waited until my Uber arrived. Take care of yourself, she said, squeezing my hand. A small act of kindness that outshone anything my family had offered. The Uber ride cost $85, thanks to rush hour rates. The driver, a chatty man named Ray, tried making small talk. I gave vague answers, afraid I'd break if I said too much. Sensing my mood, he switched on soft music and pointed out new buildings in Portland. After an hour in traffic, we reached my driveway. The house looked unchanged yet alien. James would never walk through that door again, never tease me about the overgrown shrubs, never fix the squeaky porch step. Ray carried my bags to the porch. You sure you're okay, miss? He asked, hesitating. You seem shaken. I nodded, tipped him well, and watched him drive away. Inside, the house was freezing. My mom had promised to turn on the heat but clearly hadn't. Mail overflowed from the entry table, another task my family swore they'd handle. The fridge held only expired yogurt and a jar of pickles. Troy had said he'd stock groceries. Too drained to care, I climbed to our bedroom, unable to face our bed. I curled up in the armchair by the window, still in my coat, surrounded by photos of us smiling at the coast, laughing at a friend's wedding. I sobbed until exhaustion took over. I woke hours later, shivering, to a silent house. No hum of James's morning routine, no clatter of his coffee mug, just stillness. His closet door was ajar, his clothes untouched despite my family's promise to organize them. His sneakers were neatly aligned, his flannel shirt hung where he'd left it before Singapore. I sank to the floor, clutching the shirt, searching for his scent. It was gone, replaced by the musty smell of neglect. A strange gurgling woke me at dawn. Downstairs, the kitchen was a disaster, water poured from a cracked ceiling, pooling across the tiles, seeping into the dining room. The hardwood floors buckled, drywall sagged. A pipe had burst, likely frozen in the unheated house during a recent cold snap. If anyone had checked the thermostat as promised, this wouldn't have happened. I waded through icy water to shut off the main valve, my hands burning from the cold metal. An emergency plumber said they were booked until Wednesday due to storm-related calls. I called Troy. He answered, distracted. Hey, bad time, I'm prepping for a client dinner. I explained the flood, the water in the electrical fixtures, the lack of heat. Can I stay with you until this is fixed? Silence. Then, tonight's rough, Lisa's got her craft stuff everywhere. Try Mom and Dad, I called them next. My mom deflected. We'd love to help, but we're hosting book club tomorrow and your dad's back is acting up. Have you considered a hotel? Starving and dizzy, I found stale crackers in a cupboard and ate them standing in the flooded kitchen, my socks soaked. The power flickered as the storm outside worsened. Desperate to restore heat, I headed to the basement to check the electrical panel. The stairs were slick, the basement ankle-deep in water. Using my phone's flashlight, I reached the panel but my foot slipped on the wet floor. I fell, grabbing the metal box for balance. A jolt of electricity shot through me, throwing me back. My head hit the concrete, and everything went black. I woke disoriented, shivering violently, blood trickling from a gash on my forehead. My arm tingled from the shock. Staggering upstairs, I collapsed on the living room couch, barely conscious. A high-pitched beeping pierced the fog, the carbon monoxide detector. The damaged heating system was leaking gas. My phone was inches away, but my body wouldn't move. As darkness closed in, I felt an odd peace. If this was the end, I'd be with James soon. My neighbor, Linda Harris, saved me. She'd noticed water spilling from my porch and heard the alarm. When I didn't answer her knocks, she called 911. Firefighters broke in, finding me unconscious in a freezing, gas-filled house. Paramedics rushed me to Portland General Hospital, where I was treated for hypothermia, carbon monoxide poisoning, a concussion, and electrical shock. A nurse, Emily, asked about my situation after noticing my wedding ring and Singapore-stamped passport. In my daze, I spilled everything: James's death, the lonely funeral, my family's dismissal, the neglected house. She noted it in my chart, worried about my lack of support. Unbeknownst to me, a reporter, Jason Lee, was at the hospital covering storm injuries. He overheard a paramedic discussing my case, a widowed woman nearly dying after her family ignored her pleas. It was too gripping to pass up. Jason interviewed Linda, who said she'd seen me arrive alone, looking like a ghost. He also spoke to a paramedic who'd seen my phone's open family chat, the dismissive texts glaring. She asked for a ride after burying her husband, and they told her to get an Uber, he said. Then she comes home to this. By 6 p.m., the story aired. Local woman survives near-fatal homecoming after husband's overseas death. It detailed my ordeal: Singapore, the funeral, my family's texts, the flooded house, the near-death experience. Social media exploded. The hashtag #NeverAlone trended as people shared stories of being let down by loved ones. The texts, leaked by someone at the hospital, went viral, sparking outrage. Local businesses stepped up. A plumber fixed my pipes for free, a restoration company tackled the damage, a hotel offered a free stay. That night, as the 10 p.m. news re-aired, my family arrived at the hospital. Troy stormed in pale. The news is making us look like monsters. My mom, defensive, told the nurse, we didn't know the house was that bad. Amelia knows we'd have helped. My dad lingered by the door, finally asking, you okay? His first real concern since James died. Their phones buzzed with calls from relatives and friends who'd seen the report. My Aunt Laura called my mom, furious no one picked me up. My dad's colleague offered help. Their perfect family facade was unraveling. In the hallway, I overheard them strategizing. How to spin the story, save Troy's career, protect my mom's social standing. Not once did they express genuine regret or ask how I felt. Even in my hospital bed, it was about them. As I recovered, the community's support carried me. Strangers sent messages, meals, offers to help rebuild. It was a stark contrast to the family I'd spent a lifetime trying to please. In that moment, I knew I'd honored James by building a new life, one where I'd never again beg for love from those who couldn't give it.